Another FBI operative identified on U.S. Capitol grounds on Jan 6, 2021, at least 21 confirmed incidents of feds, FBI agents, and state operatives who infiltrated Trump crowds that day. Active duty FBI colleague 2, former FBI liaison to Capitol Police, John Guandolo. The House Admin Committee has now released camera 7231 that shows a man described as an active duty FBI colleague of former FBI liaison to Capitol Police, John Guandolo, clapping and saying, "This is huge," as protesters ran up the east steps on January 6th. What a bunch of lucky traitors. That's what today's show is called. Lucky traitors. Isn't it ironic that David was being a traitor to his friendship as he said that?
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, J6 was absolutely littered with FBI agents. And the more we dig into this, the more we see that it was a setup. And they were what's the word, egged on. They were instigated. Go to the notes, because a lot of lefties are bringing up due process now with this Abrigo Garcia guy. And they're saying he didn't get due process. And that's never been done. And we're like, where were you in January 6th? And they go, they all got due process. They were taken to court. By the way, as someone pointed out on Chris Plant's show, if you're insisting on due process for 50 million illegals, the courts obviously can't handle that. So what you're really doing is delaying this until it's after Trump's term by clogging up the courts. But go to 2-7. Didn't never forget this poor who was stuck in a broom closet because they didn't have enough room in the prison. Dear Supreme Court, he was in there for months too, that guy. Where were you when the hostages wanted due process? And then Tim Pool, who's doing very well for himself lately as far as his journalistic skills. Tim Pool explains in the next link, 2.8, exactly what the missing due process was. And if you recall, remember the J6 committee? They had, what's her name? Cheney. She was, Liz Cheney was talking to the witnesses outside of the courtroom, making the whole thing a mistrial. They purposely edited out parts of footage. There are granular instances of people being denied access to evidence, overcharging, witness being barred. In one instance, the court refused to allow exculpatory evidence to be shown, which only would have required a few seconds of video to disprove charges. Oh, and don't forget that in every trial, they made a montage of like the most violent parts, and then they would edit on you. And that was you, grabbing some Skittles off the ground. And you were part of the montage. They did that to hundreds of protesters. Then there is the obstruction charge being found to have been wrongly used in every instance. By all means, liberals, argue that charging people under false statutes doesn't violate due process. I'd love for you to argue Trump can charge anyone under any statute and you have to sue while sitting in prison for 3 years. Yeah, unbelievable. Unbelievable. All right, so that was tangentially related to Proud Boys. Speaking of J6, it looks like John Sullivan is going to jail. That was the guy who was called something X. He has like a Malcolm X-y name. And he was the Antifa dude that CNN gave $20,000 to. He's the guy who told Ashley Babbitt, he egged her on. He got her pumped enough to go through that window where she was shot in the neck and killed by Michael Bird, I believe his name was. And then CNN sent him to a bunch of other things so they could justify him as a journalist. And then they were like, the government's still, or now that Trump is in office, they just go, yeah, you're not a journalist anymore. Sorry. And he's going to jail. Have you pulled this up yet, Slow Man?
It just says John Sullivan. I'm searching through the news, the mail.
Yeah. If I find this in 1 second, you're dead. I found it in 1 second. You're dead.
Is there a link in there?
No, it says John Sullivan is the name of it, from his white adoptive parents. Oh, he's adopted by whites. John had a media company for 4 years. He was the only one who caught it. Being on the grounds itself why can you not find this? Shall I just forward it to you now? Like there's only one that's called John Sullivan. Did you put it in quotes? Fuck, you're useless.
It's John Sullivan.
No, I just emailed it to you. It's from a guy named Tony. John Sullivan is the subject to mailbag March 14th, 2024. What took you so long?
I don't know. It didn't come up.
So it's the adoptive white mom who's saying that John has been arrested. It's actually, he is the first documentarian journalist they convicted by jury, and he's soon to be sentenced on 5 railroaded felonies. So this, I wonder what it's at now, though. John Sullivan, J6. So April 26th. So here we go. April 26th, that's 2024. Let's go for news. Yeah, there's been no real news for a year. We may have covered this already. Jan 6 rider sought to incite violence by Trump supporters, sentenced to 6 years. So I wonder if he was pardoned.
I think we covered that. Yeah, and I think he was pardoned.
Huh. Well, let's type that in. John Sullivan pardoned. Isn't that funny that Yep. He was released from prison January. What a lucky traitor. Trump even pardoned the Antifa infiltrators. Okay. Here's another one. Tim Pool describes Max and John's arrest. This is the Tim Pool show.
At the far left, I believe one of the Antifa guys threw a bottle and then they run at him, get into a fight. And it's like mutual combat.
Correct.
The police are called. The police arrive. The police ask the far leftists to give a statement, and the far leftists refuse to give any identification, their name, and they flee.
Hold on,
the Proud
stop.
Boys being...
They were Antifa. No one called the cops. The cops were already there. And those aren't important details. But just to add a little bit of color, they said, do you want to press charges? And Antifa said, F you, you f***ing pig. I just got punched in the face like 20 times. And the police said, all right, well, if you don't want to press charges, there's nothing we can do. And that was the end of that. And we all went out for beers. And it was like one of many stories that night. No one thought it was a big deal. Little did we know Max and John were about to do 4 years. 4 years. Go ahead.
Good, upstanding conservatives, back the blue, baby, said, officer, here's my name and address. Thank you so much. And the cop went, you're under arrest. And they went, what, me? But we were the victims. And the cop said, I don't care.
What?
Those Proud Boys got years in prison. They may be out by now, I'm pretty sure.
Hey, that's not
Would
what
be interesting
happened
to talk to them, actually. We should look into that. They got years in prison.
4.
The Antifa guys? Cops didn't even know who they were. They got away with it. Yeah, they said, well, we would have charged them if we knew who they were, because it's gang violence.
Stop.
You see?
That was all, but they were lying because we found their names. We got them. We found the Antifa, and there was zero interest in pursuing them. And so that's not quite what happened, but I get what he's doing. He's abridging the whole story. So they all went home. And then this is where Sandy Backen goes, I turned them all in. So what happened next was de Blasio, Cuomo all went nuts, and they put out warrants for their arrest. And I made it clear to everyone, you could just go on the lam and hope they never find out who you are, or you could get a lawyer and turn yourself in. And they weren't wearing any masks or anything, so it was inevitable they were going to be identified. So everyone lawyered up and walked into the station. I don't think they gave their names when it happened. But okay, is that?